My name is Alex Howard. For nearly 20 years, I've been a therapist here in London. I am deeply passionate about helping people make real, positive change in their lives. Having been through therapy myself at different stages of my own life, I know how transformative it can be. That's why I started In Therapy, a series that follows the stories of brave participants as they go on therapeutic journeys with me. Join us as we go behind the scenes as people grapple with issues like depression, anxiety, and chronic illness, and join my mission to break the stigma around mental health and asking for help. This is In Therapy with me, Alex Howard.
Hey, just a quick video following on from Alex's session the other day. I spoke to my bosses at work and they've agreed for me to reduce my hours down again, so that's brilliant. I feel like a bit excited about this next chapter because work isn't everything now. It's taken me a long time to realise that doing the shorter hours is going to make a massive difference to me. You know, I'm putting too much pressure on myself to live the life of a healthy person, and I'm not a healthy person, and I've got to build up some reserves of energy and actually start enjoying myself, and hopefully my symptoms will reduce even more. Hey, just thought I'd give you a bit of an update. I've been doing 2 weeks now, or nearly 2 weeks, of my reduced hours at work, and last week I felt amazing. I felt almost normal every day, which was brilliant. This week, not so much. Feeling terrible yesterday and today, feeling sick, exhausted, quite a bit of pain, and don't really know why. I can't really see what has happened to make me feel like this. So yeah, a bit annoyed about that. This illness is just so unpredictable. You think you're doing really well, you think you're doing everything that you should be doing, and then you still feel like crap. So struggling to get through, I struggled yesterday to get through the day, and I think I'm going to struggle again today, so not really looking forward to going to work.
How are you doing?
Yeah, so the last time we spoke, I had the epiphany of let's reduce my hours at work, hadn't I? So I reduced my hours then. I spoke to the guys at work and they were more than happy. Yeah, they were fine because I said, look, talking in veterinary terms, I haven't got much of a quality of life. I'm just literally coming to work and then crashing and not doing anything at all other than that. So they were like, yeah, that's fine. You know, they're really supportive in that.
And also, I think having had a taste of being on the sort of extended holiday and having had some sort of, periods of being furloughed, obviously early in the year, and then just better sort of rhythms, I think you had a taste of actually how much better you feel when you are able to listen to your body and in a rhythm that actually is working for you.
Yeah, definitely. So since then, I think the first week of my reduced hours, I was just like, oh, this will be enough. I don't need to do anything else. I'll be fine. Very naively. So yeah, I wasn't doing any of the tools that I've learned. So no meditation, no EFT, pacing. Obviously, I was still doing that, but I wasn't doing anything else. And I knew about that. Stupid.
When you say you knew about it, like what were the sort of signs that you needed to get back on track with the stuff?
My nervous system just started to tensing up again, and the pain started coming back like every day, and headaches and things like that. So I was like, yeah, I do need to do everything still, even though I've reduced my hours. I can't just reduce my hours and then not do anything else. Yeah, so I'll wake up and do a bit of EFT, and then take Phoebe out for a really nice, hour's walk down to the local reservoir, which is lovely, and come back, chill out, have breakfast. Then just before I leave for work, I'll do some meditation. So that's a really nice sort of routine to be in.
Yeah. I mean, it strikes me that part of what's been happening over the last few months is there's been a sort of growing recognition of the external environment that your body needs to support it being in a sustained healing state. And in a sense, part of what you're doing is advocating for yourself and actually being assertive enough to say, actually, this is what I need. I need to have slightly reduced hours. I need to come in an hour later. And also maybe part of it as well is that you need to avoid a certain level of stress in the environment. And given that it's an environment that at times can be quite challenging to be in, it's also, as opposed to that sort of default pattern of going into the sort of rescuer, helper, to take kind of shouldering everyone else's responsibilities, I think you have a sort of internal threshold that when you go past that threshold, you're more likely to trigger the pain, you're more likely to get your nervous system sort of overactivated. And whereas before, you would sort of do what you could outside of work to calm things down and settle things down. But when you were in work, you were sort of at the mercy of the demands of the hours they wanted and the environment that you're in. I think the next step in your sort of journey of advocating for yourself, part of saying yes to you is saying no to other people. So that might mean that as it's sort of escalating up and you can see that you're starting to approach that threshold, where if you pass that threshold, there's a good chance that you're going to feel crappy for the rest of the day when you get home, that you start saying, do you know what? I'm not paid to feel shit. And I'm not paid to go home and have chronic pain and to go home and feel completely drained. And actually, yes, I have responsibilities in my job role, but I'm not ultimately responsible for creating the environment within which everyone is working. That's other people's responsibility. And if they're not doing that in the way they need to, I'm not going to compromise my health to compensate. Because also, just taking a sidestep for a moment, also in your email, you mentioned with your stepdad that you'd really been assertive. You'd really been brave enough to speak your truth. And then you'd written to him and then you'd come back and denied half of it. And then you'd had the courage to go back and to sort of reconfirm your position. So I'm sort of interested to hear a bit more about that and how that felt in terms of actually, standing up for your heart and standing up for your truth.
Yeah, I just sort of spent a bit of time composing the message just in my notes on my phone. And I read it out to my husband and he was like, you need to tell him how devastated he made you by doing what he's done.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I do. I'd forgotten about that. He said, you were just in bits all the time about it. So yeah, I added that bit in. And I sent it at a time when I sort of knew that I could reply if he did get back to me. I said at the end, look, I don't really need you to reply. I just need you to know how I feel. And he read it on that evening, and then he replied to me the next morning. I was like, I'm going to work soon. It's very inconvenient that he replied to me now. But it was just lies after lie after lie. But I did tell him.
So you sent the email or the message. You then got the reply. You then went back and you advocated for yourself. You were like, actually, no, that's not my experience. That's not actually true. How did you feel as a result of doing that?
Well, obviously I was really angry when he came, especially when he came back with all the lies. Because
you felt, I imagine you wanted to be seen how you felt, and you just got completely not seen, which probably made you feel even more infuriated.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. But I wouldn't say symptoms-wise anything changed. Like, I don't think I found anything physically, but I just felt like stronger. I've just felt like I could sit up, a bit taller and go, well, actually, yeah, I've stuck up for myself, and I've stuck up for my mom, and I've stuck up for my brother. And I have always been like that, but sticking up for other people.
Yeah.
Like I've always been that person. I'll get myself in trouble for sticking up with people. I have done before, but I would never do that for myself. So I did feel like, yeah, I've done that. Yeah. And that's sort of spurred me on to focus on more of that. And that definitely, like you say, that's the next part of my journey.
Yeah, it's almost like going from standing up for strangers to standing up for your family to now standing up for you. That's really the challenge, and I think you've got the perfect playground within which to work this issue, which is within the environment at work. And I think your part of your work in the coming months is really to figure out, how do you, within the parameters that obviously are not always at times optimal and ideal, which is true, I think, for almost any environment, how do you shape it in the way which is the most supportive as you can of your healing path? So partly you've already started this journey, right? By going down to 30 hours a week, that's already started that process. Your next step is to start an hour later on the earlier shifts. But I think the step after that, as I was saying a little bit earlier, is how do you avoid getting sort of worked up or stressed out to the point that it's impacting on how you feel, despite the fact that you're in a busy environment, and an environment that's got some other challenges that are part of it.
Like there's been the odd day here and there where I've not needed to be on reception, and I do really genuinely enjoy being on reception, but it is like a literal assault of all the senses when you're on there, because it's so noisy, so busy, loads of stuff going on, being pulled from pillar to post. But there's on those days when I haven't been needed on there, I felt so much better.
Yeah.
And I was actually talking to the other manager the other day and saying, do you know what, if I didn't have to work on reception at all, I'd be able to work more hours. And I feel that I'm almost being penalized financially because we're not able to put anybody else on there.
Is there a way that you could have a limit to how many hours a day you do on reception within? I mean, I understand there are going to be days where that's not going to be possible, but as a general principle, could you get something like that established?
Yeah, I'm going to say that. Whereas before, I'd probably just say, is there any chance I can not work as much on reception? But actually, it's
as a sort of pleading, begging apology for even existing, as opposed to being, do you know what I mean? It's like, if it's all possible, would it mean that I could just, oh no, fine, okay, I'll do it. As opposed to going, I've spent the last sort of, year of my life giving everything to a healing journey, and I've made meaningful progress on that journey. But one of the blocks in the way at the moment is being overstimulated and overstressed in my work environment. And therefore, what I need from you to support me in this next stage of my healing path, and which I also believe, by the way, is part of your obligation as an employer to create an environment which is suitable for people to work in, is I need to have a limit on the number of hours I spend on reception. How can we work together to make that possible? It's no, but if you ask Oliver to send you the recording of that, I'm sure he will. But I'm a great believer in, it's not necessarily what you do, it's the state that you're in when you do what you do. And it's also not how many hours you work, it's what you do in the hours that you work. So, for example, I know that if I'm doing a day of 6 hours or 8 hours of patients, or I'm doing a day of teaching, that my brain needs more rest in the evening than if I'm doing a day of sort of meetings and admin and sort of internal stuff. I can often get another 2-3 hours out of myself productively in the evening, or I can write in the evening. But it's not the number of hours, it's what's happening within those hours, which is so important.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that makes loads of sense. And it's weird because I've been ill a very small fraction of my life compared to a lot of other chronic fatigue syndrome sufferers. My brain still hasn't really caught up with my body sometimes, and I think, I can just do reception and do whatever and ring clients that are going to shout at me and things like that. But just really, really listening to my body and recognizing what is causing my symptoms more and more.
I think
yeah, but it's, yeah.
I think, sorry, I didn't interrupt, but I think it's also what information you're using to reference your decision. Is the information the demands of others, or is the information the sort of helper pattern in you which doesn't want to let anyone down? Or is the information the achiever pattern that's like, I want to be seen as being someone that's always strong and solid? Or is the information your body? Or is the information the recovery plan that you've put in place? Like it's almost, how do you weigh each of those pieces in the decision? And if you're weighing what everyone else is, other people are asking you to do, or your over responsibility or helper or achiever pattern as being more important than your body and your recovery plan, you're slipping in the wrong direction. If you're listening to your body and you're looking at the sort of plan you put in place, and you're still being considerate of those other things within appropriate parameters, your decision is informed in a very different way. And I think that's part of what we're really looking at here. It's sort of going from those historical patterns of trying to keep everyone else happy and actually really looking at what you need to do to take care of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Which, by the way, in the end is going to benefit everyone else anyway, because it means that you get to the point that that threshold, which is maybe here at the moment, as you get more recovery, more energy, gradually rises up to get to the point that you can spend the whole day on reception, and you might not choose to, and you might feel a bit sort of kind of numb, brain dead at the end of it, but it's not impacting upon your physical health.
Yeah, definitely. And it's been really nice, the times when I've not been at work, the evenings, weekends and stuff, like I've been able to have enough energy to speak to my brother for an hour on a Saturday every week, where a few weeks ago when I was doing the 35 hours, I'd message him and say, look, I'm absolutely wiped, and then not be able to talk to him.
Yeah, it really is about having a quality of life, and it's about really listening to your body in the process. And if you're getting to the weekends and you're feeling completely wiped out weekend after weekend, that's not a life. It's just like really not a life, and your body is talking to you, your body is communicating, but your job is to honor and listen to that. And I think often the sort of things we're working on come along in sort of themes or chapters. And I really think that this chapter for you at the moment, or the sort of the driving theme, is standing up for your needs. It's advocating for yourself. It's using your voice to make sure that rather than just being pushed around by everyone else and what they want, you're saying, this is how I need things to be.
And that's sort of starting that was where the occupational health referral came from, because I had one probably beginning of the year, or maybe the end of last year. I can't quite remember, but I was like, something's got to change. And the guy that I spoke to really understands ME, chronic fatigue, and I said in my email that he said, out of all the people that I've spoken to with this condition over 30 years, he said yours is the most proactive and impressive approach to it. And I was like, oh, good, thank you.
It's amazing. Firstly, congratulations. I hope you really let yourself hear that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I was like, well, yeah, I'm, doing literally everything I can. And sometimes when with the job that I do, there's a lot of, not counselling as you would do, but, being an ear to somebody. And when they've got problems or health problems or mental health problems, and they're not doing anything to help themselves, it's so frustrating. I'm like, why wouldn't you want to? Because I'm thinking about how I was sort of 13 months ago, like before I found yourself, and the nutrition side of the clinic as well. Like, I'm just a completely different person in what I can do, my capacity. So I just think, why wouldn't you want to do everything you can do, you possibly can? So yeah, I did hear that, and I was like, my achiever really appreciated that.
Okay. But it sounds like it's not just your achiever, also just in your heart. Like, it's nice to be witnessed and to be seen in the sincere and hard work that you've been putting into this journey. So your real kind of challenge over the coming weeks is, I think, to address this situation at work more, both in terms of that starting an hour later, but also in terms of how you are sort of managing yourself and managing your boundaries within the hours that you are working. And I'm wondering, what are some of the things that you think you could do to stop getting to that threshold and crossing that threshold during the day? Like, what are some of the times you could stop, or the times you could ask for help, or the time you could put boundaries? Like, what are some of the ways you think that you can do that?
Well, it's funny actually, because when I left today, somebody came to me just as I was literally picking my bag up, and they said, "Oh, Sally, can you send some invoices over to a client?" I said, "I can't. I've got an appointment I need to get to. I'm really sorry." But the times when I don't need to leave on time and I've got an appointment, I'll just go, "Oh yeah, okay." So I need to just say, well, somebody else can do it, because we've got another couple of managers that could do it, and B, it can wait till tomorrow. It's not an emergency. So I definitely need to lay out my stall and put my boundaries in place, because I've always been like that. I really don't care about leaving late, but I said when
you might not care about leaving late, but I think your body cares about leaving late.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. And it really just hit me, and I was like, I never ever say no to anybody. Like, and I was like, I said, no, I'm really sorry, I can't do it. And I felt genuinely bad that I couldn't, because I'm always the person that doesn't mind doing whatever, whenever. So yeah, that I need to set my boundaries in place and be a bit easier on myself. Like, if it's not an emergency, it doesn't need to be done straight away, and it doesn't mean that I leave late, because I've reduced my hours for a reason.
So in some ways, again, I think, to sort of summarize part of your challenge here, it's to make sure you work no more than 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
It's like, because you're only being paid for 30 hours a week. So what's the point in going from 35 to 30 and working 33? Like, it's like not working more than the hours and having the boundaries to say no. And I think part of it as well is the distinction between things that are urgent and things that are important, because there are things that are important, like sending out invoices are important, but are they urgent? Like, there's a 24-hour difference, because the client's probably still going to take 2 weeks to pay the bloody invoice. So it's like making sure that you don't let things that are important get labeled as urgent unless they are actually urgent. And I think one of the things that happens when we're in an achiever pattern and we're almost kind of on the lookout for ways to achieve and be productive and feel like we've had a really kind of, productive day and got things done, is we tend to take a lot of things which are important and make them urgent. But when we make things urgent, we create stress, because suddenly all these things have to happen now. And I think that's also part of the difference between trying to avoid too much time on reception, where you're going to be having to be reactive all the time. So you're dealing with things in front of you and you're having no time to be proactive, to be able to sit down and go, right, what are all those things that are in the important category, but they're not urgent, but do need to be done? Right, I need to send out some invoices. I need to follow up with some clients, whatever it may be that you need to do. So it's also trying to manage your time and your focus in such a way that you're not in this constant reactive mode on reception and then coming off and making all this important stuff urgent that actually isn't urgent, and then feeling really stressed out by that. It's not just about sort of saying to the kind of management, I need to be take care of myself. You will also be more productive in your work by doing that. One of the sometimes people say to me, I don't know how you manage to have as many projects, as many things that are going on. And it's partly, I'm completely anal about time management, about where I allocate resources, and having the windows of time in my diary to do the things which are not, again, urgent, but they are important. Bunching together the things that require a certain mindset, so I can go into that mindset and stay there for a chunk of time. But that management of yourself and your work will actually make you more effective at what you do, but it will also help your system calm. One of the things that I found is when people don't have clear job descriptions and they're in roles that are demanding, they can often feel like they're failing when they're not failing, because all they know is I'm constantly behind and not getting this stuff done. And when you have a really clear job description, you go, actually, my priorities and responsibilities are this. And if I have spare time, I backfill this. You will also, I think, feel more of a sense of achievement in what you're doing, which is also, allows your system to feel, I don't need to do that extra hour or kill myself because I've done my job for the day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why when on those days when I've not been on reception, I've got so much done, and it's enjoyable, and it's a bit of a dream because I've got all this, I've got 6 hours to do all my jobs today, and I go home, I've ticked loads of boxes off, and felt like I've had a decent day.
Yeah.
And then I don't feel like, oh my God, I've only got an hour today to do that.
Yeah. I think there's a lot that can change in this. I think the trick to do it is to do it in a strategic, thought out way. Be clear what you're asking for. Chat it through with your husband before, like almost rehearse the conversation that you need to have before, so you're really clear what it is you're asking for. But I think it isn't just about you. I actually think you will also end up being more effective and of more value to the organization as well. That's my next bit that I need to work on. So yeah, thanks for that. You're welcome. You're welcome. My apologies again for the delay since last time. We'll get something in the first half of January, if that's okay, in terms of next time. Yeah. And brilliant. Have a great Christmas and New Year in the meantime. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Alex. Brilliant. Thanks, Sally. Take care. Take care. Bye. Bye. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode of In Therapy. I'm so excited to see Sally working this issue. It's a challenging one when we're so used to being there for everyone else and saying yes to others. But ultimately, sometimes to say yes to us, we have to say no to other people. But it's a challenging thing to do, but it's so important. Next week on In Therapy, we're going to be catching up with Lauren. Lauren's been through a challenging time, but there are some real positives coming out of it. So I'm excited for you to see what's coming up for Lauren. Here's a taste of what's coming up next week. I've been wondering how you've been doing.
Wow, what can I say? There's been so much change internally and externally that I don't even know where to begin, really. I had my surgery.
Already? Wow.
I'm starting to feel different, which is good.
And when you say different, what do you mean by that?
Less brain fog, clearer headed. One of the big challenges at the moment is trying to remind myself to pace myself.
Your capacity has grown and expanded, but then it's like you don't actually know at the moment where the edges are. You're going to have to crash into some edges to find where they are. What you don't want to do is recreate the life you had in England, in Spain, just with a nicer climate.